So we start our study of politics and participation by looking at what democracy means and what it is. So to start with, there are pictures of 4 world leaders, past and present. Which one do you think will be the odd one out and why? And the answer is, out of all of these guys here, and they're all men, we have got Boris Johnson, and the reason why he is the odd one out is because he's the only one that was elected democratically. So the fact that he was voted for and the fact that he's part of a democracy where he can be voted out. So democracy literally means it's people sharing, deciding how things are run. It means ruled by the people. So it means that you can vote, you can elect your leaders, but you can also do other things. You can complain if you're not happy with your leaders. They have to be accountable. We have a system of parliament where it's not just one party who are responsible for everything. They can be held accountable. You also are free to protest. You can campaign against the government if you want to, and of course you can vote them out at the next general election. The opposite to that then is a dictatorship, and this is where the leader has got total power. Might be one person, might be one group of people, and you can't usually vote them out. You very often can't condemn the government and the way the country is run, and if you do, then there's usually quite harsh punishments. So, for each one of these statements, you just decide, is it a democracy or is it a dictatorship? Free and fair elections in a democracy. People in charge are beyond the law, so that means that they can commit what would be considered a crime and get away with it. That should be in a dictatorship. Ordinary people feel powerless, like they've got no chance of ever changing anything. Also a dictatorship. People can change things, you can campaign, you can vote, you can get something sorted. And that's in a democracy. The majority or most people get their way. Democracy. Not many people get their way will be a dictatorship. The leader can declare war on anyone he wants, will be a dictatorship. And it normally takes violence to change the leader, would also be a dictatorship. So, that video clip there is to somebody who has defected from North Korea and what life is like for them in a dictatorship. What I will do is put the link to that in the notes section so you can have a look and have a go at answering those questions. So what we're going to do now is move on and have a little look at the different types of democracy, so representative and direct democracy. We live in what's called a representative democracy because we have MPs or members of parliament who represent us in parliament. We don't get to vote on everything. We don't vote for every law that's been changed, for every new policy or anything like that. So when the GCSEs were changed, the everyday people didn't get a vote on it. When new sanctions have come in for breaking COVID rules, all the new COVID rules, we certainly don't get a say in it. It's our MPs who vote on these kind of things within Parliament, and they represent us. So the country is split up into 650 constituencies or areas. When we have a general election every 5 years, we vote in our MP. So we don't go and vote for the Prime Minister, we vote for our MP. The Prime Minister is an MP, they're just the leader of that particular political party. We can campaign to our MPs, so I email mine a lot and ask him to vote a certain way and certain votes. I also campaign to him about certain issues that I feel strongly about, and he will go to a member of government who's involved with that, give them my concerns, and then he'll get a reply for me. So that's it, our MPs represent us. Problem is though, if your MP doesn't represent your views, so if say for example you're a Labour person and your MP is for Conservatives, you may feel that your MP doesn't actually represent you, or vice versa as well. So it could be any political party, and if you don't support that political party, if you don't have that political affiliation, you may feel that you're not represented. This is where representative democracy can let down the democratic process. However, if you had to do direct democracy, which is the next one we'll look at, takes an awful long time. So this way is nice and quick. So then the opposite one, then direct democracy, this is where every citizen gets to attend political meetings and vote on issues. So it would mean everybody votes on absolutely everything. Problem is with that, it'd take forever. We'd be so bothered about voting for the next political thing, we wouldn't have actually time to run our lives. It'd be impossible to monitor, and also maybe we'd be too caught up in that to actually enjoy the things that MPs put in place for us. Direct democracy is far more democratic, however it takes far too long, and perhaps people get bored and not even bother. The next things we're going to look at then is the values of democracy then, because being in a democracy means that you've got certain rights and responsibilities. So, for example, we've all got human rights. Everybody in the world is entitled to human rights. It's just unfortunate that in a lot of dictatorships, your human rights aren't met. So things like having a fair trial, things like being able to vote are part of your human rights. Being able to express yourself the way you want to. In democracies, we tend to have our human rights met, although not all the time. We've also got responsibilities. So if we're going to live in a democracy, it's our responsibility to go out and vote. Otherwise, there's no point moaning about the way the country's run. It's also our responsibility to follow the law. We're not tortured in this country. We don't have the death penalty because we live in a democracy. We've got those human rights, but it is then our responsibility to make sure we follow the law. We've got a lot of freedoms. You don't have to dress in a particular way in this country. You can express yourself how you want to be. If you want to be a man and you're female, you can freely go and dress that way, and vice versa. If you are gay, you can express yourself in that way. If you are religious, you can express your religious beliefs. A lot of countries don't have those freedoms. So again, that's a massive value of living in a democratic society. We've also got equality and the rule of law. Everybody in this country, the Queen, the Prime Minister, a beggar on the street, is subject to the law. So if they go against the law, they will be sanctioned accordingly. Of course, it doesn't always work out that way, but that's the way it should be. In a dictatorship, the leaders are very free to go and change the law as and when they please, and also they're above it. They can do whatever they want and they don't face any sanctions. So there's a 1 mark question for you there. Which of the following accurately describes the UK? And the answer is B, representative democracy. So what's life actually like in a dictatorship? Again, I'll put these video links in the notes. But you should see the differences within the law and human rights and what people are free to do or not free to do. For example, listen to the facts about divorce rates in North Korea. You're not free to even love the person you want to. We've then got an 8 mark question. It says, considering a range of views, justify the claim that UK citizens can participate in politics more fully than citizens in a non-democratic country. So with an 8 mark question, you need your different points of view, you need your tier 3 keywords, so things like democracy, non-democratic, direct democracy, and those kind of things, and you also need a conclusion. So I've got a writing frame on the board for you. So you need to think about the fact, not just voting, the fact that you can go out and start a campaign group, you can sign petitions, you are free to criticise the government, you are free to support what political party you want to. But perhaps maybe in somewhere like North Korea or somewhere where there is a dictatorship, you might actually be more interested in politics. Even though you're not allowed to do that kind of stuff, maybe you might want to more. So perhaps you can in this country participate more fully, but maybe you're not as willing to. And also then you could look at, well, maybe if we lived in a direct democracy, that would be even more able for us to participate. And there's your mark scheme.